Hello, and welcome to Ideas with Diana on November 17th, 2020. One thing I'd like to talk about today is some new developments I saw in research and development, primarily with what was done with Moderna. I heard the interview last night on the NewsHour, PBS NewsHour, and I thought basically the science is sound. It uses a technique of membrane blocking, which is common. I shouldn't say common, but which is used quite a bit in medical research, but it is a difficult technique to do because, as it was shown in the interview, you do need to understand the membrane structure, and you do need to understand basically how how fluid the membrane is. The technique used is basically developing a plasmid that has messenger RNA inserted into it, and then injecting the plasma into a person. This plasma is taken up by most cells, which forms this membrane protein there. And the way to think about how this works is just think about your skin, namely like your face. You have many pores on your face, and depending on what type of beauty product you use or product you use, you can make your face look, you can make your pores look very small, or you can open up your pores or clean your pores. Well, now the thing is, what happens is basically the pore idea is how the messenger RNA works. Like for example, normally, basically when we do our daily activity, pores absorb a lot of stuff from outside, and we sometimes have to use different types of products to clean our pores, astringent or different types of beauty soaps or facial cream and that. And what happens though, but if your pore is already is blocked with something, then it can't be blocked with something else, and that's how this works. Basically, this takes the place of where the cell where the pore should be. So consider this like a cell membrane. And let's say you have the standard thing is you have something like this, like a protein marker here, a cell marker here. What this mRNA does is this mRNA puts a different marker. It sort of fits in the same space, but when the COVID tries to come and bind onto this, it's like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't fit quite right. Instead of fitting like this, it's like, so basically the COVID is prevented from activating on the cell. The biggest jump was how to induce cellular immune response memory, because in an article I read in Scientific American a few months ago by one noted AIDS researcher, he discussed about where part of the problem that they're having was inducing immunoresponse memory with COVID, and this does cause immune, because what happens when this one antibody comes, and when this one membrane marker forms like this, what happens? The person that gets it, they don't have any illness or anything else, or but what happens? The body learns that when it sees this membrane marker being formed on the cell, that this is something we got to send our immune response out and take care of this. And what happens basically, so when COVID comes and tries to bind onto the cell, here comes the immune response, and gulp, 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 gulp. And or sometimes just basically immune response comes like a bunch of gangsters, goes like, nope, we're taking you out of here, or ushers like that and stuff. So and that's what I like about Moderna's response about using the messenger RNA in the plasmid. What I discussed so far may seem simple, discussing about 4 minutes, but it really is difficult to do, because when you work at the extracellular level, a good point that is brought up, it took President Trump's warp speed project to get Operation Warp Speed to get this going. It also took $1 billion in venture capital to get this going too, because And when you work at the extracellular level, it's not just as easy as some college chemistry experiments that you do in chemistry 101 or organic chemistry or some others. You actually need to have better need to have advanced machinery, advanced diagnostics, special reagents, and all those basically cost in that though. And that's where in addition to that, you need to have dedicated people that are willing to come in and come on weekdays and feed the cells and also maintain the experiments. And because a lot of people don't realize, a lot of people think, well, when you do cellular biology, it's like chemistry. You add this reagent to that reagent, and you get this. Sometimes they demonstrate by color shifts or chromatic shifts. Well, it's in biology, in medicine, there's another step added to it because, just like we get hungry, cells get hungry. They get hungry for CO2. Just like in Wisconsin, we like our cheese. Cells like the CO2. Basically, if you have a cell culture on a plate here, and like you want to go for a party and on Saturday, and you think, well, let's see, well, did I keep did I leave the CO2 on so the cells have enough CO2 or didn't I? What happens if you did and you're diligent, you can go and have the party. But if you seem to have second doubts and then you say, oh boy, I gotta go back to the lab and check to see if this has it on. Then you sometimes can't enjoy the party. Or sometimes even basically, even if you are diligent, just basically sometimes people, we forget things, and sometimes you come in Monday morning like, oh no, I ran out of CO2. I forgot to replace the tank. And that's what part of this research is too, because basically you have to have their cells require CO2, and that's part of this process, and that's why it is partially about $1 billion to do all this and other things though, because it is a big thing though, because basically it's extracellular research does require like I said, advanced equipment and also advanced facilities too. It's not something that people say, well, why can't they do in a hospital? Well, a lot of hospitals wish they had the old time advanced facilities to do it when they did. I mean, a lot of hospitals used to have their own blood banking unit, but nowadays they defer that to American Red Cross or different independent blood banking units like Veritas in Milwaukee. And it's just basically it's it's something that you also have to have venture capitalists who understand the process, because some people think product is like basically like when you sell something on Etsy, you sell something, use a pop. This is actually an oxygen meter. Let me show you this here. This is an oxygen meter that allows you to, and I bought this at Walgreens. But when you sell stuff on Etsy, you make a little pouch and you put it up for sale, and people look in, they click and you buy it in about a few days. You send it out to them, and well, just before we go, let me just show you how this oxygen meter works. You click this button, you see a light come on. You put this on your finger, and let's see what it comes out to today. Let's see. Okay, oxygen 96%. Heart rate 81, and part of the reason I bought this was during this COVID was just to recognize, just to make sure my breathing was good and my heart rate was good, because it's a lot easier to buy this and wait forever in an emergency room, but the point is, so when you do research like Moderna did, it takes a long time before you get from concept to product, and many failures, and you have to have that time to really figure out how you're going to do this, and also have backers that'll stand by you to do this, because sometimes people think, well, some say, well, oh, I got a great idea. I want to invest. I think I'm starting this business, and I want to do this and this and this, and so some people ask their family, they ask their friends, and which is a common way in the past that was how a lot of businesses started. But the thing is, if you ask family and friends who really can't afford to invest, then it's like, well, are you going to get the product going? Is it coming? Is it coming? Because then one day, one day, really need it now to pay this bill and such, and and that's one thing about investing. And when you do a big project like this, you shouldn't really ask people to invest, like family and friends who really are having a hard time with the budget because they really can't afford to invest. That's not the best way to get into it like that though. The thing is, though, once you do get a success, then what happens comes to human testing, and the human testing with the FDA is again a process. As licenses, as there's human testing procedures for volunteers. That there's actually like a test that basically anyone who works in human research has to take from the FDA regarding confidentiality and other things, and also people who do take a test and who also do volunteer, because part of the test and confidentiality is to understand that basically is when people feel they're in a dangerous situation, they will lie. Because, for example, like during World War II, many people of the Jewish faith who lived in occupied Europe, when the Nazis would come and try to round up all the Jewish people, they'd ask them, they say, well, did you see any, and what happens, many neighbors who are sympathetic would actually lie, and even lie to the point, because if they did answer truthfully, they know that they would be harshly killed as well as their friends would be. So, and that's part of the thing about human research testing is you have to make sure you explain all the results, all the tests, and everything else. But the thing is, once you get to human research testing, before that you have to test on animals, and normally what they do is they test it on cow, pig, horse. See, cow, pig, horse, and oh, that's a fourth one. I'm having trouble recalling that, but and then once you find out that there is a significant reaction with animal testing, then you can proceed to low scale human testing. When you do low scale human testing, what happens? You test you do most of the time they do a double blind test using the vaccine or the placebo, and then after the human testing, then they have to consult with the patients and let them know, well, what type of test were they given the placebo, were they given this, and once the small scale, then you go into a large scale. But here's the thing about the large scale, though. Um, think of it this way. Let's say someone opens a neighborhood sports bar like that. You open a neighborhood sports bar. You have different types of tappers you can pull. You can Miller Lite and other cores and some foreign beers. Like that though, and Guinness like that, which is what I like too. So you have this sports bar, and and basically it gets popular. You have a nice lunch rush. You have people coming in having tacos and other stuff, and but then basically um, somehow basically the popular becomes so much that instead of just having like regulars and your like, I mean, you have 10 to 100 times more people coming in, and they're all waiting. They want to try your tacos. They like your beer service, and you know they want this. Well, basically, okay. Well, once you establish a little thing, now to scale it up, that's the big part, because basically a lot of people think, oh, well, that's easy. If you're a sports bar and you want to scale up, what you do is you just make a bigger sports bar. Okay, that sounds simple, sounds logical. Very good. Well, okay. Well, let's say you're in an area like Chicago, Milwaukee, New York, LA. you have a good sports bar, good neighborhood. You want to scale up. Well, okay, you're leasing space in a building, commercial building. It says, yeah, hey, my business is going good. I'd like to scale up. I'd like to add some more space. Oh, that's great. That's great. We can do that. Well, what happens? I'm going to have some space open up in April. We could do that next door. Well, what about well, that looks good. Okay, price looks good. Well, can I take that wall out so we can? No, you can't do that. I got to keep on as two separate spaces as per regulation. You can have them go through the door, and stuff, and or the other thing is basically, first might say, well, I can give you space, but basically they're going to have to go through this doorway to the hallway to this way, and see, with people working on things like Moderna did, that's also where you have to have a big enough facility that basically, you have a big facility, but you start you start a skunk works here, which is like a small spot, and then what happens once the skunk work goes, then you can expand it out to the bigger facility where they have the big mass production machines to make the vaccine. And making the mass production of a vaccine is like also making mass production of like the way Abbott makes mass production of serotonin. It's not as easy as people think, because there's a chemistry method where basically, you take reagent A, mixed to reagent B, you put it in a beaker, you turn it, get a little beaker a little bit bigger than this, spin it around, and then basically, you use it. Well, now what happens when you make a bigger reagent? Let me just get a pop here. When you make, when talking about making a vaccine for 350 million people in the U.S. and about 5 billion people worldwide, you're talking about making things that basically you put you put in bottles, and you have these bottles running down the assembly line, and or these vials getting filled, and the thing is, the test tube method that you use, where you had one beaker of one reagent, another beaker, another reagent, you pour it in, stir it, and get your product, or you run it through. You have a bench where you run it through a library condenser and distill it. Well, what happens that that's fine for a laboratory, but when you're doing a commercial process, it's very wasteful, because basically, when you actually calculate what type of yield you got and how expensive it is to make this product on a laboratory basis, you realize, well, wait a minute, I really need to use this much of product A, and I could have used a more concentrated version of reagent B. And the thing is, so when you do it in an industrial thing, you have to realize basically, okay, well, now instead of having basically reagent A and reagent B in this size, what you're talking about, let me get yet another pop here. Let me get another pop. Now, imagine this gallon of milk carton multiplied by the capacity multiplied by 500 times. So what would that mean? This is like about, okay, I'd say this is, well, for our purposes, this is about a foot high, about 6 inches wide, So we multiply this milk carton by 500. So that means you have a big vat, big, huge vat that's 500 feet high, 250 feet wide, or sometimes even down to about 100. A big, big circular thing, and it's the same type of setup like on a dairy farm, where they have many, where they're milking many cows. They have this big vat that they store the milk in, and so, but except for this big vat that's way up to like 100 feet, 250 feet, or 500, has reagent has a specific amount of reagent A, so that basically when you make this product, it's basically you're not wasting reagent and then another reagent B. And then what you do is just like mass production, you have it run through an automated assembly line, and into a bigger reaction vessel that makes it, and then this reaction vessel basically goes down and puts the product on, and then you have another machine that basically basically separates the product into functional units, and when it's separated, it's put in a delivery container like a bottle, and then sent down the assembly line and packaged in a box. Well, to do all that is again, this is where you need a certain type of facility to lamp up, and because basically it's really not a type of thing that you can actually just say, oh, okay, well, let's go from this small to this big. No, it doesn't work that way. I mean, even when you consider the tech companies in the Silicon Valley, and even many companies in Milwaukee area, like a famous history of Harley Davidson actually started in a garage, or 10 by 10, which is, I think that's a wonderful idea for entrepreneurship, is the 10 by 10 idea. Have everyone who wants to be an entrepreneur rent a 10 by 10, so they have workspace, they can work on stuff and do it. But what they did is, basically at one point, they went like this. Let's see, like this, like that, and then finally they'll get major investors, and major investors say, look, you guys are going good, it's going good. Well, let's just do it this way. So, they expanded it this way, and then they had other people said, oh, okay, let's do another expansion. But the biggest thing about doing this is they also had economists who said, well, look, okay, if we're going to expand from this, we have to have so many sales a day to maintain, this site. If we go to this site, we got to have so many sales a day to maintain this site, and if we go to this site, we have, but sometimes, when people want to expand, sometimes they really can get very, very, the egos can come and say, well, I want to go huge, very huge. And what happens, I'll say, well, we can do that, but you realize we're going to have to get, how many sales and units per day we're going to have to sell to maintain this. And this is what happened originally with a lot of automakers around the 1980s. They had plants that they built in the 1920s, huge things that were very great ideas, and basically, but they couldn't maintain the production, so they had to change their marketing thing. But the whole thing in making the vaccine now is basically is how is this going to be distributed? How long is it going to take to make basically 350 million vials, and a vial is basically about the size of this Jägermeister thing. It's basically so you need to think of it now. Going back to Milton Friedman, you need to think about, okay, what materials I need to make this in addition to making the vaccine and making the vial to distribute this, and the supply chain to get this out. People think, well, we can just call FedEx, DHL, or other UPS and have them ship it. Well, they'd be glad to help it ship it. But basically, for 350 million, that would swamp them too, because you have to remember FedEx and UPS, they only deliver a certain amount of packages per year. Actually, the postal services delivers far more than many shipping companies combined, and that's where basically you need a company needs to work with a supplier that has the trucks, the trains, the boats, planes to get it out there, and also has reliable people that are getting this out there, because once a vaccine becomes available, the biggest thing to worry about though is with the vaccine is bootlegging and black market, because basically as soon as the vaccine becomes available, how are they going to protect the shipments? Because there are many companies that sell popular products that improve health, and they've had the shipments robbed, and basically even in the U.S. and other countries. So how do you protect that? And so basically, we're making positive progress, but the thing is, what I read in today in the Chicago Tribune is that for many people that like Broadway, in the plays on Broadway, in the theater section Tribune, like one show that started in Chicago is playing the Wheel on Broadway is not going to open until 2022, and the implication was that other shows aren't going to open until that either, and that's because basically people really don't know, basically how this thing is going to end up, so. And that's even with news of two vaccines, so it still comes upon basically supply chain, ramping this up, and for supply chain and ramping this up, some people are going to get mad at me, and fine, you're going to get mad at me for saying this, but I think it has to be said. Normally Republicans and those who work in the private sector are better at getting things done that needed to be ramped up and scaled up than professional politicians. And so basically, when January 23rd comes, I think that's when the next president is sworn in. Some people who are professional politicians are basically want everyone to be a true blue Democrat. You're going to have to put your ego and your bias outside the door, because you are going to need help from many compassionate Republicans who will be willing to help. But we're not going to be forced like a bad church to convert. We still believe that Ronald Reagan was right. That the private sector can help in better ways sometimes than other ways, and we also still, and I'm a Wisconsin progressive Republican, so I still believe in Wisconsin progressive ideas that was formed in 1844 in Ripon, and that though. So, but the thing is, to solve this, we all got to work together, and we got to work together as Americans first, and put the pettiness of and the punching of this election behind us, because we really did knock ourselves black and blue. And just get one other prop here. Let's see. Oh, well, let me just get two of them here. Let's see. I think three of them. I think this would get the point across. Let's see. First prop. Two boxers in the ring. Both of them are knocked out, so there's no the fight was so bad, and both of them, as you can see, are really down for the count. More than just a 10 count. The second one, Battle for Texas, and it shows one person of one culture, another person of another culture. But if we're going to get this thing solved with the virus, this person may be the researcher. This person may operate the supply chain. The two of them are going to have to find a way to work together. Third pop. So showing Uncle Sam at the voting booth and wondering what in the world has happened, with a discussion, and shows different people and shows caricature of Biden and Harris and Pence and Harris and Biden and Trump and and some of the others here. It's like, again, we're all going to have to find a way to work together. Even though we have our strong opinions, that they'll help us solve this, but eventually we're going to have to learn how to work together again. And let me know, and that's my closing thought. And let me know what you think. I'm on Twitter at Diana1A, and normally I prefer to receive messages. Just leave a message on Twitter, or tweet a message to me on Twitter, because I prefer it that way, because I get overrun by robocalls and other calls. So just if you want, just tweet a message, and when I check back on Twitter, I'll respond as soon as I can. Right now, with Ron and Nikita and Matt, in Wisconsin, we still don't have facilities to do a multi-person show like we did many months ago, because even like in our apartment buildings, it's still basically essential visits only, one person only, family members only. So you can see that I'm doing it for my apartment, and you can see I can only have one other person, and it's so when we can get the whole gang back together, we will. And we are trying to look for continuing the ideas with Diana, as well as Girls Just Want to Have Fun on a radio station. The thing I like to say though is Parkside had a student radio station, WIPZ, and website was wipz.org. And one of the greatest things that happened when we did one show with Matt is Matt was telling us about a family member who's going to watch this and not listen to this. And right after we did the show, and later that night, he got a call from his friend in Berlin, and it was wonderful to hear that we had reached that far over, even into England, like that, when we were talking about the UK with Brexit. And the thing is, like most universities now in this COVID crisis and other small businesses, this COVID crisis has affected budgets and supply chains and supply lines, and the thing at Parkside, that's what they're running into too, because a lot of businesses that did advertise on WIPZ right now, they can't afford to, because due to this changing state directives, like in Milwaukee, basically most of the bars are closed, or significantly limited as to how they can serve. And even some people have rumored that some people are being told to tattle on other bar owners and patrons for not covering up and wearing the mask, and charging $5,000 fines, just like the same thing they do in Chicago. And really, extortion is not going to solve this problem. I mean, if you're gonna go back to what Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote about in the Scarlet Letter, about a very puritanical society, and like, you do this, or we're going to put a scarlet letter on your head, and you're going to have to wear this scarlet A on your bodice, and it's like, even when Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote the Scarlet Letter in the early 19th century about puritanical society in the late 17th century, he realized that wasn't the way to go. And just to give you a more modern example, in the Fox TV series Lucifer, that was on for many years, it's about basically it's sort of like a fantasy. It's about the son of the devil who came to LA and works in the LA Police Department, and lives with a woman detective and her daughter, while he's working for the LA Police Department. And at one point, basically what happened is his girlfriend's getting ready for work, and and the daughter was a little bit frustrated, and she said a swear word, and she said, "Okay, okay, young lady, that's $1 in the swing box, dirty word cup." And what happened? Lucifer said, "Well, wait a minute. You're talking my language. You're using extortion to try to change our behavior." He says, "Don't you know that actually reinforces that behavior? Because the more someone you force someone to put that money in that box, the more they're going to fight you on that." And what happened was, the person thought about, well, that's where I was taught in church and everything. And then it shows later in the episode, she thought, "You're right. That is, extortion doesn't work." So what happened? She talked with her daughter, and it's like the way my parents did. They'd talk with me. They explained the logic, saying, "Well, you really should try to just discipline yourself, so you can express yourself better without having to use that type of language." And that's what it showed in the episode. But extortion, to force people to wear masks, and it's like the Lucifer. To some state legislators and city administrators, watch the Lucifer episode. You'll learn a lot. And I mean, I'm not expecting you to read all the way through Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter, but you can get the Cliff Notes and you can figure out about that. It's better if you do it a different way, because we got to work together on this. Well, this has been Ideas with Diana, and I'm hoping to make another podcast a little bit after Thanksgiving, or I may make one a little bit later today. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk with you soon.